All right, what does it take to make it as a writer? Mindset, process, adaptability, and marketing are key. Tonight we're chatting with a self published author whose first book made $75,000 in sales. What? 7 years later, he's still writing to make his living and has discovered new ways to do it. And ways that he says he will share with us. Ryan Danks, welcome to the
Oh,
show.
Yay.
sorry.
Hi, you're
Hi, how are you?
here. And Kaylene's here, and your hair is looking fabulous.
Almost white.
Yay! It looks so good. Yeah, okay, so Ryan, welcome. It's great to
Thank
see
you.
you, great to meet you.
Same.
And could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you're all about, what you write?
Sure. So I started on RPGs. That's where I wrote the book that was $75,000. It's called Jade Punk Tales from Cow City. And currently I do Kindle short reads primarily. I do Medium articles. I write heavily there, and I'm starting some new stuff that called the Intrepid Journal, which is a newsletter through Substack. And I'm gonna later on in the year I'm gonna key that into a YouTube channel as well. But I'm a little introverted in that area, so starting it on my own, coming to this
Yeah.
stuff is easy, but starting that on my own is probably a little difficult.
So you've got like a number of pots going with your writing, different ways of opening up your readership, drawing
Yeah.
people in, and also to make money to actually be able to continue to do this for a living.
Right. Yeah. Which is key. The
Yeah.
whole sectioning everything, having multiple revenue streams.
Right, yeah, to be able to last it not just now for the next 3 months as your book sells, but into the next 6 months and the next 6 years, and
Yeah.
to keep going. And we're going to kind of get into all of that. So tonight we're talking about the survival guide for the writer in this year, right now, and kind of in the future. What are some of the things that authors are up against? What are some of the things that cause some of us to either stop writing, if maybe writing's our hobby or our love, but to kind of give it up, or to kind of be forced out of it and into something else for whatever reason? What are the things we're up against as writers?
So I think the biggest thing is that we're not taking advantage of what's out there. Like there are so many writers who have a lot to say, and they're writing novels on Kindle, and they're not doing, say, articles for Medium. And so I think Medium, I make more on Medium right now than I do in other places, because the platform is just so good for making money there. And the same thing is true with Kindle. The way that I use Kindle is different from the way that usually is done. Normally, you write a novel, you put it up on Kindle, you promote it, and you can do that a couple of times a year, and then hopefully 3-4 years from now, you're making a lot of money. I use it primarily for Kindle Unlimited because I like the business plan that I can do with that, and I can hit with high volume, and I don't have to worry about, did that book I spent 4 months on make it? Instead, I know, well, in that 4 months, I wrote 8 short stories and 3, small nonfiction books, and people were reading those pages and churning them out, and I'm getting paid per page read, not per purchase. That because it's a 12-hour read, will probably just sit on someone's Kindle for the next 2 years till they actually pull it up and read it. So I think using the tools and using strategies that are not dated by 5-10 years is where a lot of people could probably learn to better their business and make a lot more money.
So there's other options out there that we might not be available, and other models that might make us more money than the ones that we're kind of stuck on, because we
I think so.
are aware of it.
Yeah.
So in your estimation, what does it take then to survive as a writer?
So I think it requires us to stop looking, or at least for me, when I got into RPGs, because I wanted to be a comic book writer, and I wrote scripts for the Ultimate Marvel Universe, and I went to the San Diego Comic-Con because I live in Las Vegas, not that far, and I showed it to a bunch of people, and it was really hard to break into. So I said, and this is like 2009, so I said, okay, I'm going to go be a novelist because it's easier to break in there, which I had no idea.
Of course it is.
So I eventually made RPGs, and I thought, I'm going to make a role-playing game to get interest, and then I'll write independent books for fiction in that world, and that's how I'll break in, and I'll just do it myself, and kind of came up with a business plan, because I come from like, went to school for business. I was a business operator, things like, that kind of stuff. So I went that route and started doing that. And I started realizing that you really need to branch out. And the problem was I always looked at myself as a writer. So it's like YouTube, I don't do that because I'm a writer. Or, marketing, I'm a writer. I shouldn't be focused on marketing, when what we should be looking at ourselves as is content creators, because that's what we are. We're content creators, and there's multiple content. There's audio, video, written word. As writers, we specialize in the written word content. And so for me, it's this, when I got into stocks, it kind of opened it up for me, because I don't know if you're familiar with the S&P 500, which is an index fund. And the concept is that there's 500 of the best stocks, and they take your money, you put it in the index, and they spread it amongst those 500 stocks. So if 3 of them fail and tank, there might be 4 of them that succeed and skyrocket. And the average is always, before COVID, was about 12% a year of gain. So overall, you're going up. And I thought that's great for business, and we should be doing the same thing as writers. So I started making multiple revenue streams and focusing on those with the amount of effort based on how they're performing. And if one's performing really well, then I'll more effort on that, less on other things. And that way, because I've seen it with Amazon when it tanked, for me anyway, because they had a thing called, I think it was called Kindle Worlds for a long time ago. And like Valiant Comics was on there. And I thought, this is my chance. And so I started writing stories to put on there, and I put 2 months of work into it, and then they just canceled Kindle Worlds. Or at least they may have brought it back, but they canceled at the time. And then they had a thing with serials too for a while. And I grew up on comics, so serial fiction's how I think. So I was like, I'm going to do that. And then they pulled it before I could submit anything. So I was like, it is very possible, even though it doesn't sound like it, that Kindle or Kindle Unlimited, maybe something could just go away. And that's a huge part of your business. So to be resilient, you got to have like these multiple streams of revenue. And that's how I built my business up. So when RPGs are not doing so hot, well, I'll focus on Medium. If Medium changes their algorithm and my money sinks a little bit, I'll write some more Kindle, or I'll write another RPG. But I can bounce, and usually one will drop, but the other will raise. And rarely do they all drop or they all raise. They usually play this like the S&P 500. And so I kind of, that opened it up for me and made me think about it.
So real quick, what is Medium and how do people use it?
So medium.com is an article site. It's kind of like, it used to be, people used to think of it as long form social media, but it's really a place for you to write articles, like a blog, like a public blog, and everyone posts their blog, but the homepage everyone shares. So kind of like a feed. And what you do on Medium is you can sign up for a partner program where you get paid per time read. So it's not per minute, it's per like seconds and stuff. But what you do for Medium, it's paid. So you pay like $50 a year, and then you have access to all of Medium. And it's just like Kindle Unlimited, except instead of page read, it's time read. So these people paid roughly $5 a month, and then that $5 gets distributed amongst everyone whom they read. So if you signed up for $5 a month and only read my stuff, I would get all 5, or however much of that 5 they relinquished to authors, I would get all of that. But if you read me and Kalene, we would split it, or based on how much of each you read. So it's just like Kindle Unlimited as a model, except it's usually like my audience there is different. Kindle I keep for fiction. I keep it for instruction on writing. For Medium, I've stopped doing instruction on writing because I want to separate the streams of revenue, and which includes the audience. So I focus mostly on what's big on Medium, which is business, finance, productivity, motivation, that kind of like self-help, things like that. And I write an article, it takes me like 25 minutes, and some articles I'll write 25 minutes on and I'll make $1,000 in the next 2 months on it. So it's pretty, and sometimes I won't make anything. It's how it works.
So it's a content creation that you get paid to do. Is it
yes.
Nice.
So I get paid when people read it. And if they do, like they have an internal thing where they kind of market to each other and to everyone around. So I make a large portion of money. It's volume based though, just like Kindle. the 20 books to 50K thing. It's the same concept. You get 100 articles out there in a month and you make more money than if you got 10 out there.
But it sounds like you'd want to pick topics that are more popular on Medium, the general audience. So you need to know what the Medium audience is. Because, like, for me, I'm an editor and an author, so I think, hey, I could write some editing articles and get them up there pretty quick. But what's the editing readership? Probably
So
kind of small on
they have
Medium.
publications, which are kind of like Facebook groups, kind of, not quite, because you can't just post stuff and get it on there. But it's like an online publication, like an online short story place, and different ones specialize in different things. So like there's the startup that focuses on entrepreneurship and business. There's the writing cooperative that focuses on writers and editors, and it's a really, really big one. I wrote an article last month on how authors are not getting in on James Patterson's $90 million business model, but YouTubers are using it like crazy and taking off. And Writing Cooperative was like, we love it. They didn't even ask me to edit. They just published it, and I got tons of views from their viewership. There's people who do short stories. The downside of it is that there's that initial paywall, $50 or so, and if the people who pay that are generally there for business, tech, things of that nature. But there's people who just do self-help. There's people who just do writing, and as a revenue stream, if it's not doing really well after 3 months, then you can just publish an article here or there. One might take off and make a little bit of money, and you focus on other things. It's that S&P 500 kind of thing.
But definitely another option, especially if especially if you're the type of writer that's like, hey, I have a few things I want to say, I can say, and definitely sounds like at least an option to give it a try. Like if you're doing a bunch of other things, put an article once a month. It doesn't have to be anything big, and then
yeah. So I'm noticing in the comments, Jay Clifton Slater says that it's he wrote several articles for Medium and got no traction. It did take. I started writing for Medium back in July last year, and I got lucky because my first article was how I was able to help the company that I was with as a operations director, how I was able to make them $100,000 in profit every month, where every month we increased $100,000, and that was big for the Medium industry, audience. Sometimes you get but I've written about writing that blew up. I wrote about my most viral one is how my first book made $75,000. I've written about how I lost 20 pounds in 2 months, and that one was really popular. Like it's really a volume game. If you don't, I've heard it said, I don't know if I agree 100%, but they say that you can't complain until you get to 100 articles, because there's a learning curve and you do learn it, but it is an investment in time, definitely, and it's a skill that, like any other, needs to be learned.
So about how you were able to make $75,000 on your first book. So what is the story of that? Because most authors are kind of like in my camp, where I got the book out and maybe 40 people read it and maybe half of them are my friends. That's kind of the story of a lot of authors out there. So we're like, yes, how did you do that?
So it's an RPG, not fiction, and that matters. But I don't think it matters a ton because of how I did it. So I published it in 2014, but in 2012, the Fate Core Kickstarter happened, and it was huge. They raised $400,000, and I was like, I liked the game, but I really wanted to be like, okay, I want in on this pie. This is a huge slice of pie, and I want in. So I follow Gary Vee very heavily, and he wasn't around back then, but now I'm glad that I did what he said, just accident. But the concept of jab, 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 right cross, or he calls it right hook, which is the jabs are value. You just give as much value as possible for as long as you can for free, and make just people's lives better, solve their problems for free in the area that you're building in. And then you ask them, you send that right hook and knock them out. Ask them for, hey, by the way, I have a book, because most writers, when they go on Twitter, it's buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book forever. And you unfollow, because it's like, dude, come And it should be the opposite. It should be, hey, here's a really cool thing I found out, or here's a really cool thing that I know how to do that I think I could help you with, or hey, you need help with that editing that book, I'd love to just do it for free. And then when it is time to ask, people feel like they owe you. Like I feel like I owe you money. Here, take it. And so I made like Star Wars hacks for Fate Core for free. I made all kinds of stuff. I showed people how to make Superman just as part of the core mechanics and tossed it out there. Whatever I could come up with that I knew people were looking for. If I saw a question on Google Plus at the time, because that was a thing, if I saw somebody questioning and saying, I wonder how to do this, I was like, I'm going to figure that out, and then I'm going to put it out there for them. I see someone has a problem, but they don't know how to do book marketing, whatever, and I had a blog, and I was putting it out on the blog. And people started sharing it, and a year later, I announced my Jade Punk Kickstarter. And I had people come up to me through Google, and they said, hey, I'm not into Jade Punk, but you've helped me so much. I feel like I owe you money, so I'm going to support it. And they dropped like $100 on the Kickstarter. And when the book came out, they bought it again. And because we forget at the end of the day, we're marketing a book, but we're also marketing the relationships, because that's what marketing is. It's a relationship between a business and a customer, and we need to build that. And if we sit in our castle saying that we're this important author, and so we're too high to interact with potential fans, that's not the way to go forward. You build your tribe by being a tribe member. And so you know that connection and that providing that value. I did that for a year. So when I dropped it, I made $14,000 on the Kickstarter, and then over the next 2 years, I made probably $50,000 on the book, and it's gone over 75,000 since. And that's just the one book. I also made 9 other books in that line that have made money. I made Shadowcraft and Age of Anarchy and other books that took that same audience I built up, and I provided value for a year, and after that they paid dividends till now. It's 7 years later, and I'm still accruing the benefits of that.
I over the last few years, I've heard this repeated, in many different ways. Don't just sell your book. If you like sewing and one of your characters sews, tie that into your book. Give your readers sewing tips. Hey, here's this cool article about Pluto. If you're out there in space. Here's this cool science thing. I'm thinking about putting it in a book. It's like little ways to tie it back to other things that have nothing to do with. But you're creating more than just here's my book.
Yeah.
You're also adding in all those little extra nuances. Which can be even funner if you can, in small ways, start to tie it back to your book, and then suddenly be like, "Oh yeah, hey, here's this thing."
Right.
And then
it's hard as a fiction writer. It took me forever to figure out how to do that for fiction, because how do you provide value? You provide value by writing the book. Is always my idea. So I'm actually starting the Intrepid Journal. That is, I have a musician on board, and what we're doing is we're sharing the works of creatives. But the ones that inspire us, and that's how I feel like I can give value. So it's a newsletter, but it's a little more than that, 'cause it's not just mine, and it's not just me like, hey, buy my book. It's doing what you said. It's using things that inspire me, because I think it'll inspire other people. So like, hey, I watched The Mandalorian this week, and I really liked how this went, and then I played Cyberpunk, which had its issues, but I something inspired me, and I want to share that. Destiny Ann is a musician, and she's sang at Carnegie Hall, and she's played violin at the Smith Center here, and she's only 15 and a half. Brilliant. Yeah, she's brilliant. And so she's 15 though, so she's into TikTok and Instagram, and there's people who do that professionally. So she gets inspired by them. She gets inspired by a certain music artist, and so we're going to share what inspires us about it, what it is, and just try to share that for people who are maybe creators that are too afraid to create. They get locked up like, hey, this person's doing it, and we just share all these things. And I'm hoping that provides value to people who are into fiction, because it's like, well, yeah, I like The Mandalorian, or I like this, or I like that, and they start to follow me in the process of me giving them that value. Because otherwise newsletters for writers are pretty boring typically. I
mean, I do have to say, there's some authors that it's like I look forward to the pictures of their dogs or
Yeah.
the shenanigans that like their kids get into if they happen to share a little bit more about their family. Or funny or interesting science blogs. You know, it's like I look forward to seeing those. So then when they do post, oh yeah, I have this book coming out. Like for example, I'm just going to throw Walt out there. He like never posts about any books that he's doing, and it's like
He
all of a
doesn't.
sudden he posts about a book today, and I'm like, oh yeah, you do write too, don't you? I need to check that out because you know you're freaking awesome, dude, man. So it definitely wasn't just like, oh god, here's another one. You know, it's like, oh, there's one. Let me go check it out.
Yeah,
So,
well,
yeah,
Walt
I
is, I love him to death, and he does not share. I found out when he asked me to come on the Banff podcast, and we talked, and we were hanging out. Now I'm like a regular guest every Wednesday, but we were talking and hanging out, and he said, he goes, yeah, so I've got this book and that book, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we talk all the time on social media. How do I not know that you have books coming out? And I didn't even know he was writing fiction, and until he had like his 4th book.
That's like everywhere. He doesn't ever say anything.
He needs a publicist. Definitely.
Yes. So you do want to make that connection with your readers. You want to give where you can and share where you can and make other people's lives better. But you also need to, talk about your book and your writing and what you're excited about,
sure.
and let people know because they want to know. They want to be aware of it. They want to know where they can find it. They want to support you,
right?
Because they see you as their friend, and you are friends, right? I read.
Which is where the jab right hook is.
Exactly.
It's three jabs. Lots of value, but then
right.
I do need to throw that hook. I need to buy my book. This is the thing. But then here's a bunch of value. Oh, wait, this. And you do need to come back to, I need to have bills to pay. More value than yourself. If you go out thinking, I'm going to help as many people as I possibly can today, you're going to get helped when you ask for it. So it's kind of a karma thing.
Yeah. And also when you're making that post, you're on social media and you're trying to come up with the right words. If you're in the frame of mind of, I've got friends out there. I'm talking to my friend. Maybe I don't know their name. Maybe I haven't met them face to face, but they are my friend and they see me as a friend. It can help you to come up with the words for that post, to get it out there and have the right tone and to actually have that presence on social media.
Right. I'm sorry. Was that a question?
No,
I was reading. I was.
We've had great questions.
Silent Wolf's
question.
Thing. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I thought you were. I'm sorry. But yeah, I was reading next. I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, Silent says, so I'm noticing as an author, I need to write my book, write a blog and give away awesome sci-fi stuff, then also create a newsletter. So that's a lot of tasks. Can I incorporate as a media company to get some government loans? Oh.
So I am a business major kind of. I was a business operator, but I don't know the answer to that one. Maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to touch on that.
Yeah. Well, we
throw that out into Keystroke in the group and see if, because we've got a lot of people in the group. See if anyone in there might know a little bit more on that.
Kalene, we did have a recent guest. I don't want to name him, but we had a recent guest who did say this exact same thing and was saying that it is possible to get the loans and the payment. There's specific ones that you can get. But I feel like I don't know enough about it to give any kind of advice on that. So I would go back to Kalene's advice. If you have that as a question, put that up in the Keystroke group, and hopefully someone who does have expertise in that area can answer it.
Yes.
But
that's a good question. I also would like to know.
I do believe there are funds available from the CARES Act that may apply.
So he did say it was tongue in cheek. He or she, I don't know. Sorry. But the first question they asked was, what's the blog giveaway equivalent for science fiction or sci-fi fiction? And that would be, in my mind, if you have something cool that's sci-fi, I mean, it's the same thing as anything else. Really, do you guys talk about blog giveaways a lot?
Mm-mm.
This is the first time hearing about it.
Okay. So in my mind, if you made something sci-fi or showed people how to world build, I notice a lot of people struggle with that. So, or they should admit that they struggle with it from some of the books I've read. And so, not throwing anyone under the bus, but it's teach people how to do sci-fi. Maybe break down the anatomy of a blaster and maybe get an infographic of a laser rifle, and people can blow it up and make a poster of it and give away the art or something. There's lots of things you can do towards that that I think would be helpful if hopefully one of those things inspires.
So things that you're already learning, things that you're already working on, take a couple notes and then see if there's a way that you can turn it into something you can share with other people.
Or just a general thing, like, you know, they have phasers in Star Trek and they have blasters in Star Wars. So let's come up with like an infographic of these things. You're not selling it, so you're not going to get sued. So just toss it in there. And if you do, you won't get sued. All they do, my mom owned a company where she had us dress up like Spider-Man and go to kids' birthdays. And it was ridiculous, but I did it because it's my mom. And so she was doing like SpongeBob and all that kind of stuff. And she ended up getting hit with cease and desists. And easily could have been sued, but the lawsuit comes if the cease and desist isn't abided by. So she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'm done." And she walked away. And this isn't legal advice, just how it happened for us. But yeah, I mean, if you try, why not?
Well, for them, it makes sense. She's making money using their characters.
We totally got. I was like, how long before you get sued? But yeah,
let's find out. I don't know. Didn't say that. All right, so
she pivoted.
Before we continue on, we do have a wee bit of a spotlight. That's just how I'm going to shove that in there right quick. All right, today's spotlight is on 2 Steps to Writing Great Short Stories by Ryan M. Danks. The best way to learn to tell a story is to tell a short one. But what makes a good short story? How do you set it up? How do you deliver a great payoff? The 2 steps in this book will teach you how to write compelling short stories that will delight your readers and help you get more stories published. The lessons in this book were gleaned from the author's study of storytelling masters, such as Neil Gaiman, and condensed into just 2 critical and easily understood steps that will work for short story authors and authors of serial fiction alike. Ryan M. Danks doesn't waste any time getting to the nitty-gritty in this little book. It's short, which is fitting for a book about short stories. If you are a short story or serial fiction author, this is worth your time. Click buy now or doom.
God, I want to edit it so bad now that I've heard it read.
I tried. But I will just say,
you have Kindle Unlimited.
But I will say short stories, for a lot of authors have asked me, it's like, oh gosh, how do I get to writing more? How do I, figure out these arcs and get from here to here? And I'm like, take 8,000 words and write a full story. But you can't go any higher than 8,000. And they're like, what? And I'm like, or 10,000, so it's a little easier. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, and then try a 6,000 word one. And I'm like, and do a few of those, because when you're writing the short story, you have to get like in it and like right away and from one thing to the next. You can't dilly-dally on any sort of like side quests, and it really helps to like get your head into what's most important, so that when you do side quests, they're more purposeful, because you can see like where you can sort of spike off. Anyway, so as a side note, that I recommend.
In J-Punk, I have 8 short stories at the beginning of every chapter, and each one is 150 words, because that's all I could fit on that page. So 150 words or less is all I gave myself, and they do tell a complete story of as complete as you can get in 150 words.
That's really cool.
But yeah, those flash fiction things. And someone mentioned that they have a hard time getting all the writing done. Well, that's why I focus on short fiction, because I can get 20 stories out in the time it takes someone to get a novel. And I just enjoy that. As a bit, there's a lot of people say, well, short stories don't sell like a novel does. Well, yeah, one short story won't sell like a novel, but 30 might. So, that's the way that I just like everything else, volume. And then if I can write short stories fast, and I can write articles fast, and I can pump that volume out everywhere on the internet, then if the short stories aren't doing so well, I'd focus on medium. If that's not doing, I'll put out an RPG stuff. And again, that whole process there. And then if one short story just starts getting long, which they don't because of the way that I write them, I go in knowing how long it'll be, kind of.
Well, one of the biggest reasons authors kind of quit is just you get stuck in your own first book. You never make it to the end of that first book, or you get stuck in the next one. How can focusing on something smaller, like a short story, be a good way for an author to actually survive and keep writing?
So the way that I'm a big fan of Masterclass. I got in on it really early when it was like $100 forever, and they took that away. They charged me, but it was at one point. And there was a screenwriter. I don't remember his name. I'm kicking myself right now that I don't. But he gave me some of the best writing advice I ever had, kind of. Not to get to me, but to Masterclass. And he said that when you write a scene, you always have to ask yourself who wants what from whom, and what happens if they don't get it. And that's the scene. And I said, well, that's a story. Like in Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Well, the story of it is Star-Lord wants to keep the Infinity Stone safe from Ronan, and if he doesn't get it, Ronan will destroy. If he can't get what he wants, if he can't keep it safe, Ronan will destroy a planet. But then you go to the other side, the antagonist. What does Ronan want from whom? He wants from Star-Lord that same thing. Because if you make them want the same thing, but they can't exist together, then you have conflict. Because, like, okay, easier is Daredevil wants to save Hell's Kitchen from organized crime. Kingpin wants to use organized crime to burn Hell's Kitchen to the ground and rebuild it in his own image. These two things can't exist together. He can't save Hell's Kitchen and it gets burnt down. So you know when the story's over, when that conflict ends. One person got what they wanted. And that is how I feel like you can get to the end, because you build up to that conflict. And that's how a great short story is done, too, to reveal a little bit of one of the steps in that book. Neil Gaiman says a short story should be the last chapter of a book you never wrote. So what I do with that kind of concept is, if I was telling a Daredevil story, I would start my short story at the end, right before Daredevil goes to fight Kingpin, and it would be, I would lead up to all the tension. He's going up there, and the city's about to be blown up, and it's all up to him, and it's this highest tension moment. There's a shattering moment where one of them is going to get what they want, and who wins? And that's the best short story, because if you think about it as the last chapter, not only is it easy to write, but you're never going to go past it. Unless you leave a cliffhanger, and then which I always do for some reason. I'm really terrible at saying the end. But like, this is the end. I solved that conflict I set up. This is the time. This is the moment the story ends. And that's how I think you can get through, where you can continue. But like, for me, I have to break it up in many versions of that. The scene, this who wants what from whom in this scene.
Right.
Finish that. Okay, how did that lead to the next one? Who wants what here? And you can still do the scene and sequel thing, the action reaction. The action is the high action, the combat, or something of that nature, the big thing. And the little one is who wants what from whom, and it's emotional. And they're reflecting when someone wants support, the other one's not giving it, or whatever. And you're still getting that scene and sequel. But someone still wants something, or it's not a scene. It's a vignette or vignette, or I don't know how to say that word.
Vignette, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but that's my takeaway on it for that.
I can see how that would be great for a discovery writer. Someone who's used to kind of opening a scene, they have no idea where it's going, and they're just going to kind of find out as the characters act. But if that's you might be halfway through your scene and you're like, what next? I don't know. I can't think of anything. But if you go back to that idea of who wants what and from whom, who's getting in the way, then that can give you that idea that you're looking for to push forward and finish that scene, and also keep going with the book.
Yeah, because you will know where it's supposed to end so that you can continue. I see that a lot. They're just like, exactly what Lauren is saying. I don't know where this is going. But if you know that they need to solve this one problem, who gets what, then... Well, someone's got to get it.
Patricia Gilliam got it. It was David Mamet. It was his masterclass. That was the one that said it. So sorry, David, but thank you, Patricia.
Silent says, cliffhangers in short stories? Isn't that crazy?
So like I said, I grew up on comics. That's how I got interested in reading. And every comic ends with that splash page. The next villain showed up, and that's how I think. So every short story that I read, actually went through recently to look at the ones that got published, and they all end with there's more story to tell if I want to pursue it, but the immediate conflict is done. Sometimes they don't, because they end in, like a death opera kind of thing, and then that's it. There's an end. But I rarely write that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and it's a thing for me, and it might make people angry, but my goal going forward is also to make serial fiction through these short stories, 10 to 20 pages, something you can read at a lunch break. And then next week, there's the next one, and you can binge it, and I'll get that Netflix binge watching audience. And you can wait till the whole season's done and then just read them all if you want. But that would be how I'd string them all together.
So, but you are being extremely purposeful in this.
Yes.
All of your short stories, they have a conclusive ending, but oh my goodness, there could be more happening with this story if you wrote another one. So you're already setting up your audience to expect that. And that is one thing that is hugely important in writing is what do you want your readers to expect from you? So if you want them to expect a newsletter every week, then you put one out every week. But if you suddenly do that for 2 months and then nothing, that's where you could start to see drop off because you're not being consistent. So whatever you do it for a reason and make sure that it works for you. Because honestly, anything can work.
Yeah.
If you can work it.
Something smaller you can learn from. You can learn how to build that conflict and to build a strong story structure, but also gives you a win because you actually complete it and finish it.
You get dopamine. Like, yay!
Yeah. Oh, it's super motivating. When I started on Medium, writing articles took me 3 hours, and I would struggle, and I was scared when I hit publish. As people know now, I watched Kitchen Nightmares with my daughter with Gordon Ramsay stuff. I didn't even know it was a thing, and it's like 15 years old now. But we were watching that, and I was like, I love this. Yes. It's so cool. And I just sat down. I wrote an article about it in 20 minutes and related it to my writing career and put it out there. And it took me 20 minutes. And you get that it just becomes easier. And if you can do a bunch of short stories, you can go a little longer and do novelettes and then do novellas and then novels, if that's your thing. I think that our, like we were talking about it earlier, the digital tools that we have are going to change how we publish. Not because people are getting dumber and wanting smaller things, but because we're able to sell more if we put them out that way and inundate the market with volume.
Can we remember that real quick? But also, we had a question. Silent asked, "What is Ryan's pen name?" Because I'm seeing the craft books on Amazon.
Okay, so I don't have a pen name. I've always been Ryan. But I haven't always published on Amazon. I have a book on there called Bushido. That was my first short story of this nature. A lot of the short stories I did were published. Like I had The Century published with the Cynic magazine that's no longer around. A few other things that I'm not allowed to publish because
contracts.
Yeah. And then a lot of my experience comes from writing web series. I was a ghostwriter for a few web series, and also contracts. But I learned from there that this is how people check in. This is what makes people come to the next thing and stuff like that. So I do have a short story series starting Monday. I'm about to launch the first one, and another series in a different world launching probably the week after. When it's done, I don't like giving dates, but that one is going to go Monday, the first one, and it's going to start this process in this. It's a science fiction world, not science fiction, supernatural. Sorry, it's based on the Sin Eater, which I thought was really cool from Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
So I'm doing something kind of cool with that and the mafia, and it's a little more combative. So I'm playing with that, and then I'm also doing a superhero one that I'm going to launch. But a lot of what I've learned was a lot of it's from practice, a lot of it's from studying masters. But now I'm finally getting the chance to do it for myself because COVID took away my last job, and I have to. So
yeah,
I feel you on that one.
Which was one of the revenue streams. Again, I had another revenue stream. COVID tanked it, so now I'm like, well, you know what? RPGs were doing good, Medium's doing good. I'm going to go back to fiction, and I'm going to make that a thing. But I'm going to make it my thing this time.
Yeah, so one of those keys is being able to adapt and to pivot. Now, you're talking about tools that are available out there already that we might not be aware of, and also how you think those tools will be changing in the future. Let's unpack that.
So, like, well, Medium for one,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of platforms. Like when Kindle started becoming popular, like people stopped getting down on independent writers. Was 2010, 2012. Before then, independent, everyone's like, that's crap. Buy the ones that are published. Now people are starting to be like, no, independent writers like everyone else. And sometimes, like I know one locally that's awesome. Her name's Alexia Purdy. She actually took care of my child in the NICU when she was born deceased, and my best friend resuscitated her. That's how I met. That's how I met Alexia, and then I find out later she was able to quit her job as a nurse because she was making so much in writing, and then she ended up having to go back to nursing. You know, life is messy and sloppy, and that's how it works. But but back then, like she was the first one that people were starting that I was aware of anyway. That people were starting to say, you know what, they can do this. Like she got a traditional contract and hated it, and she couldn't wait for it to end. So she just went back to doing it independently. And I think the world today and the tools we have today are different from then. Like we have TikTok to promote work. We have like probably the best promotion ever for a book that I saw was Henry Cavill reading The Witcher on YouTube.
Yeah.
I just loved. I mean, Henry Cavill's his accent and all that is cool, but he had the whiskey and he just took his time, and it was like super cool. Yeah, it was super cool. And like we have those tools. We have YouTube that just posting that, and if it goes viral, can make you money. And if it doesn't, who cares? It promoted a book, and you can share it. And you don't have to develop all your time into that, into learning that new skill. But medium.com, people who used to write articles, they can now, I do it by myself. I get no one's permission. I can beg the publications, please do it. But what I do is I just publish it. And then I have publications. Once it gets distributed and starts going viral, publications are like, hey, we really like this. Can we do it? Can we bring it over to our publication? And so that way I can move fast, and I don't have to, I hate begging people for the privilege to make money. I have the ability, and we have all these digital tools. I'm just going to go do it, and you guys can get in on it if you want. I don't know if that's arrogant or not, but I just don't. I hate the idea of, can I please work? Unless it's a job and I'm going for a job interview.
Right.
But without that, if it's this kind of a thing, no, I'm just going to do it because I can.
The world needs that work.
Yeah, but also like Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is like, you just. Right now I'm doing everything, and I'm putting it all for Kindle Unlimited. So it's zero cost of entry if you've already beaten that barrier of paying through the paywall for Kindle Unlimited. And then you're like, Ryan put out a new thing. I'm going to go download it. And it's free. It's part of your Kindle Unlimited.
Silent asks, does Ryan suggest writing in someone else's IP, intellectual property, or just continue making his own?
So I think if you have the access to, it's a great idea. What I was saying earlier about the, what's his name? Oh my God. James Patterson. His business model, I can't believe we don't see it a ton, but I can too, because writers get into this. My story's a special snowflake and no one can touch it. But James Patterson he makes $90 million a year. The only author that makes more than that is J.K. Rowling. And J.K. Rowling made Harry Potter, and that's an outlier completely. James Patterson is the only one who continuously writes and makes that. I mean, the next one is by far reduced from that. But if you notice, any of his books from the last 5 years have someone else's name on it, except for maybe 1 or 2 books a year. All the rest are co-written, and the collaboration is huge. YouTubers use collaboration all over the place, and they make a ton of money with it. Writers, just for some reason, we want to be this little ball of isolation and not branch out. And when you do someone else's IP, or when you work together with another author, it provides more than just that one book. Like if I could only do 1 book a year, and that's my output, if all 3 of us could only do 1 book a year, well, if we work together, like I did one with Lauren, I did one with Kalene, and then you guys did one with each other, it's easier because we're sharing that load. Yeah, we're making 50% on that, but we're able to put out now 3 books a year because the sharing that load, we're going to be able to do it. And then I can work on my snowflake special story by myself. And like if I was writing one with Lauren, it's like, okay, Lauren, we don't want to bring something to the table. Let's sit at the table and discuss what we want to do. And then do the same thing with Kalene. And so that becomes a very, personal thing right there. But that way we don't fight. And then because of the way it would be done, like in my mind anyway, the way I've done it before, the way Walt and I are actually doing this live right now. But what we would do is like maybe I write chapter 1 and then you edit chapter 1 and write chapter 2. Mm-hmm. And then I edit chapter 2 and write chapter 3 and on and on. And
so many ways to do it.
So many ways to do it. So many. But if we did it that way, I can't work on it for more than a little bit a week because I'm blocked. I'm waiting for you. So I can work on my snowflake special story at that time, the one that's super important, the next Harry Potter and all that. Because every writer thinks they have that, including me. But I don't. I'm pretty sure I don't. But every writer thinks dreams. But if we did that, not only would we make the money because we're expanding the amount of books we can make, but we're sharing audience. You are going to share your audience with me because there's a book. You're going to want to be like, look, I made a thing, and people are going to see my name and they're going to jump on it. And then so you're adding, like I was talking about with value before. There is value in you sharing my work because you're on it. You have personal value.
Right.
But then when I release another book down the line, you still have value in sharing that. Because you're going to say, hey, Ryan just released a book. By the way, check out his backlog. Because I have a book there with him. And everyone wants someone to say, look at this person's backlog. So if you can do that like James Patterson does with so many people, I got in on his masterclass in the beginning, and he was just like getting going, and he had a contest, and if you won the contest, you got to co-write a book with him. It was like making your career. It was awesome, but I didn't do it because I knew he wouldn't be interested in space elves or anything else I'm interested in writing.
Are you sure?
Well, maybe, but I've never seen him write it, and his masterclass suggests that he's probably not. But if you do that with enough people, you build this huge community. And this is a great way for multiple authors to build community. I mean, you guys did it at Keystroke. So I understand it was a bunch of different writers that just came together so you didn't have to struggle on your own.
Yes.
And that's how Image Comics was formed. It was the same thing. They were sick of Marvel and DC's crap. So they were like, let's do this, and it's creator owned. And then they just produced together. And it's this community mindset and this teamwork that's probably... James Patterson is the example, and then YouTube proves it because they do it all the time. And when somebody comes in someone else's video, and they did a thing called Escape the Night, and it was a bunch of YouTubers, all their viral YouTubers together in one big thing that was produced by YouTube, and everybody grew. I learned. I didn't watch it. My daughter was into it. But when I just walked in and it was in my background, I learned about YouTubers I had no idea about. So did she. And everyone's YouTube channel was raised because they spent some time to work together. And I think that's should be huge on everyone's mind.
So collaborating can kind of facilitate the process, but it can also give your audience excitement when, all these things are getting published, they're coming out, you kind of feel like you're a part of something, and you can expand that readership base.
Yeah, and it works better than an anthology, because an anthology, if the three of us wrote an anthology, anyone that is Kalene, that came for Kalene, they're going to read Kalene's story and bounce, and they're not going to learn about it. Most of them are not going to learn about Lauren or I because they came for Kalene, they read her story, they're out. But if we co-wrote the book, they got to read the book, and then they might be like, I really like this. And then let me check out the other author too. And that's the way they truly share. Because there's a lot of anthologies I bought because one person was in it, and I've still yet to read any of the other stories. Or maybe one because the title was just catchy and I read that one, but I didn't read the 12 others. It just wasn't interesting.
Honest confessions here.
That's why I spend so much time on my titles. I'm just like, oh, this is like the opener. Like
you're brilliant at it too. Were you the one in our chat earlier doing the titles for this?
No, that's Lauren up there with the headlines.
You guys in Medium, 90% of it is the title, getting someone to click, and then you get some read. Even if you only get a minute out of them, if you can get 1 million of those, you're super good. And you guys are great at that. You would do great as medium writers.
Thanks.
Well, we do. We do spend where Lauren will be like, okay, we need this title. Here's what I got going. And I'm like, well, what about this or that? And then we just like bounce it back and forth. Just like, Eureka!
Yeah.
There's often a lot of like me banging my head against the wall before I kind of break through. So audience, if you ever come up with any ideas of shows or titles or guests that you want to see on, come to the Facebook group and tell us, because we would love those ideas.
Yeah, I'm terrible at it. All my titles, when someone reads it, they're probably like, wow, this was better than I thought, because the title is never as good as, because like Medium has some rules, like not rules, but unspoken things. Like if there's a monetary value in the title, then you're immediately going to get 10 times the clicks. And I hate that, because now everything is, well, this person made 600 grand, or this is the new $10,000 business model, which I don't write any of those, but I hate seeing those all the time.
I don't know. The ideas you're coming up with for those articles sounded like ones that I would want to read, and I'm not even in those areas of the economy, but they sound interesting to me.
Yeah, and they are, and those are the ones, admittedly, that I click on, so they work. I just hate that's like I would, and it's the literary thing. I want it to be honest and true, but at the same time, I'm part of the problem. I'll click on the bad stuff.
Rick says, "Pay me $1 million for this article." There's a title.
Right? Yeah, and you know what? And if you could make that have value inside, people would click on that. They would. Medium is super easy to write for.
So a lot of what I'm hearing tonight is unconventional ways to reach people. Not necessarily in selling your book, but just making yourself known. How do you want to be known? You can do fun YouTube videos where, I don't know, that's a whole content thing that you need to figure out for yourself. But like through Medium with the blog articles, ways to tie it into your story. Newsletters, same thing. Fun, interesting things that your readers might like. There's different groups that you can create your own groups. But just thinking outside of the box, not just, I have a book, here's my book, here's a link to my book, but other things surrounded in this realm of writing and your universe and your characters, and getting people engaged in more than just reading your book. That's going to take a lot of thought juice. There's going to be so much thought juice going around. It's just going to be like squirting out of your eyes, because you're going to be crying all of the juice, because you're just going to be banging your head, getting a migraine. But don't give up. Keep finding your niche, because everyone has something special to share, even if it's everyone else's stuff. Because I love finding, like on Sci-Fi Shenanigans, which they have now changed their name to something else that I can't remember because they changed it. But I love reading their fun, science articles. And, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think a big part of it is anything, like when I write an article or anything, if I'm trying to promote, it's always, what is someone going to get value out of this? How can I help?
Yeah.
And if I can answer that, then usually it's worthwhile and someone will be interested. That's generally my guiding star.
Now, we had a question about platforms. Frankie Mitchum, he asked, my question would be, would he consider reading a few chapters here and there over Twitch, the streaming platform?
Oh, so I think that's another example. I think it's a great idea. Twitch is allowing role players to play games online and make money. And if you get enough people, then they would be into it. I do think platform matters. So it depends on are there people interested at Twitch, but you never know unless you try. And you can always share the Twitch and make your own audience. There was no audience for Jake Poker. No one was interested. I had to create my own audience for that by adding value that made them want to come and hang out. But I think if you give away chapters, it's absolutely relevant, because you're adding value. You're giving something that they see as worthwhile. And that's, totally. If you read your whole book for free and they could listen for free, the whole thing, or they could go back, download it and listen at their leisure, because you're going to take 6 weeks or 3 months to read it, it pushes them to be like, I want to know what happens next, and they'll just go buy it. But if they're broke or they're just not interested or they want to spend the time, they can listen to the whole thing. And yeah, totally relevant because you'll build, and you don't have to do that for every book because you might have audio editions, but you could do it for one or two or three here and there and build up an audience and give value. And that's any, Neil Gaiman says anything that you can do to make the reader turn the page is valid. And that it counts for selling books. Anything you can do to make them buy your book is valid. And there's no rules. There are things you can do that will probably alienate future audiences. So you might want to be careful if you do certain things. But, those are things usually outside most people's moral compasses. But anything you can do to get people to click that buy button is valid. 100%.
So definitely focusing on that. What kind of value will someone else find in this? Is this going to be enriching their life in some way? And even if it's just, oh, what a cute puppy, that just made me happy and gave me dopamine. So share those dopamine squirts and get those things going. And then people start sharing, especially if it's something where you can have like conversations and comments going on. Now you've got more people talking to each other and they're like, did you know that Kalene wrote this thing? They're like, I did not. All I have seen are these adorable dog videos. Tell me more. And then you're just like, and that's great. And it just builds itself.
The only thing you want to make sure, like there's an author named Shonta Grimes. And I don't know how popular she is, but she's big on Medium. And she writes fiction too. She's also from Vegas, so she's got a lot going for her. But she has the best newsletter I've been a part of, only because when I signed up for a reason that she promoted, and it's consistently been that every week. A lot of people are like, yeah, if you love my writing, you'll love my newsletter. I'm guilty of saying that. And then the newsletter is 100% different than any of their writing, and they're sharing dogs stuff, which is like, okay, you could have said, hey, and for pictures of my dog, sign up for my newsletter. And okay, at least I know what I'm getting, and I'm getting into it for that. And I want to make that personal connection, which is also valid because there's people who, like you said, want that connection. And that's a great way to build it, because what better way than over canines?
So also on top of that is, I think we touched on it a little bit on another show. If you are going to offer something, make sure that you are delivering on it. So if you're going to offer a newsletter that's all about science facts, and occasionally I'm going to let you know if I have new works coming out, and then all you show them are flowers, that has nothing to do with the science of flowers, at least, then, you are not delivering on the promise that you were given or offering. There we go. There's the word.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah.
So definitely, whatever it is that you are offering in your content, make sure that that's what you deliver.
Especially like if you're going to do something like Kickstarter. I was not on one of my Kickstarters able to fulfill everything. It was my first Kickstarter. I just got crazy with the stretch goals, and
that's what I
was getting into. And I see that a lot of people that are writers, like fiction authors, are getting into Kickstarter now, which was awesome, because back then it was like you're lucky to get $200 for a fiction. Now, I'm seeing people pulling numbers, and it's cool. I dig it. A lot of people are like, oh, that's how dare you? No, it's awesome. Again, legitimate if it works. But you gotta plan, and a lot of that planning comes into how much work are you going to do, because your time matters and has a value. And if you're spending all your time earning money that you were given 2 years ago, you're in debt. You're not actually making anything. But yeah, I felt really bad when I had to go to the Jade Punk Kickstarter guys and be like, look, I still intend, but I just don't have the time or money. I do have to family to feed, so I've got to go and make new things. And that was a terrible feeling.
Yeah. So
don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So following through on those promises.
That's why I don't give dates now.
It's hard. Wow.
Were there any last minutes?
Well,
I do an segue.
We've heard a lot of advice about platforms, kind of focus on one or two that you're really good at, and probably one that you're familiar with and But which platform for reaching new audience do you think is the most beneficial time-wise? You mentioned TikTok, and I've heard that recently from a couple other authors that they've gotten a lot of traction on TikTok. So which platforms do you think in 2021, in the coming months, are going to be more effective for authors, and also TikTok? What do you think?
I think it's where the eyeballs are. You always chase where the numbers go. And it's going to be different in 2022 than it is today. It's different today than it was before. Everyone's caught on to the Twitter game. The follow for follow is ridiculous. It doesn't work. I have, I'll follow you, you follow me. You didn't care about anything I ever write, and I get zero engagement when I did that. People are wise to it. And so I think right now the big ones are TikTok, Instagram kind of brought themselves back with stories and with reels. They're really good at taking like Snapchat or TikTok or whatever and pulling it into their platform. And they keep reinventing themselves. Instagram, I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. TikTok, definitely. Snapchat, I feel like the players have left, and now it's just the people who liked the platform, which is relevant. But you want to go to I don't want to say the next big thing, but where if everyone's running there, run with them. But it's always and you'll know where you go once you get into the practice of this, because you need to be hitting volume. If you're posting once every week, you're not going to get anything. It doesn't matter where you go. You're wasting your time. Like Gary V is it's a little ridiculous because he'll share probably 5 posts a day on Instagram, on every place, but 5 posts a day on Instagram. He'll do 30 stories a day on Instagram, and it's like, dude, oh my gosh, I want to unsubscribe. I'm just getting fatigued from you. But that's, I mean, if Coca-Cola could put a commercial on your TV 24 hours a day, they would. If you want the Coca-Cola numbers, you need to have the same mindset. And chasing the eyeballs is just where you're going to do that volume at. But you've got to have that volume. You've got to put it out there. Every free minute. If you are running your own business, which if you're a writer doing independent publishing, you need to, every free minute needs to be a selfie and then goes to Instagram, and then, something. Every free minute needs to be something, some kind of update, some kind of quote. And, if you have something like canva.com, it's easy. A lot of the native things too, though, are getting good. Like Instagram, if you do like a native text thing, they have little things you can add on to make it pretty and stuff. And you can build a huge following that way. And you don't have to be like I'm not an Instagram model. Don't know if you couldn't tell. But I'm not going on Instagram doing that stuff. I show like the adventures I do. I go to cigar bars, and I go biking with my kids, and I put that stuff because I want to build that personal connection. And then every now and then I'll be like, yo, look at this new release on a story that's not like popping up in your feed and messing with you. I use my paid social when I do paid advertising for that. It's super relevant and important to do that. But you don't need to put a lot. $25 here and there will help you with the marketing there, if you're already pushing organically with the volume. But I think right now, Instagram and TikTok, to answer your question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Isn't all of this kind of distracting from the writing? Or concentrating on your story and all that?
Yes. So it depends. If you are putting out the volume of writing, like what I do with my Medium articles and what I'm about to do with my Kindle stories, where it's just like out there all the time, that alone is providing some of this volume. You're inundating those algorithms so much, people are going to see you on Amazon because you're just smashing it with new material. Same thing with Medium. I'm smashing it so much that you're going to see me somewhere, as you're browsing. And so that helps some of that. And it's native. It's native to the place where people go to buy. So that helps. If you're not having that volume, if you're putting out a book every 3 to 6 months, then you need, for survival, be posting to promote your last books, your backlog, because you have to survive. And even if you're not posting about them, you need to be taking that time to promote yourself so that people want to go see them. Because if you go 3 to 6 months between it, think about if someone like a video game company, or, well, that's probably a bad idea. But like, okay, if Coca-Cola, because we already came up, what if Coca-Cola only released one Coke every 6 months, one can?
Yeah.
you just close everything. They're never sell. If they're going to hit that volume, they need to be. If they were only going to do one can every 6 months, they need to be promoting that thing like crazy, like a video game company would, so that you think, I need that golden can. That is amazing. I need it, and they're going to sell it every single time they do. Or if they only released a certain batch of Cokes, that's probably more relevant. But like if they only did certain publication runs every 6 months, the months in between need to build up anticipation and need to be selling that old stuff. Otherwise, you're going to go with months where you don't make anything. I had months where I didn't publish. I gave up. I even closed my blog down, and for like a year. And that year, I needed a job because I didn't. No one was bought. The purchasing was happening, but it was so low until I came back, started talking again, and then I started getting purchases. It requires activity. So it's
I'm gonna bring up something in another show that we were talking about, which is like basically your own personal productivity and how you approach your everyday. So, doing all of these posts, on Instagram, on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on the Twitch, on the Tumblr, on the things that you find your audience to be, which is hugely important. It's you don't have to spend all day making all the posts. You know that you only have an hour's worth of brain time for writing, and that's in the afternoon. Well, you have the morning and the evening to do something. So in the morning, you could read some cool blog articles that you're sharing across the platform. Towards the evening, like you be taking pictures of you go to the cigar bars
right.
And hiking and things, you do stuff with your friends, your family, you're taking pictures in the evening. Well, now you can post to the Instagrams and the things, and then there are also options. I know on Facebook you can schedule posts. So if you know that you're going to be really super busy, you've got a deadline coming up at the end of the month, you can schedule out that last week and only have to worry about a couple Instagram posts, but doing it consciously, knowing where your time is going to be spent, and doing it purposefully, it doesn't feel so overwhelming,
So there's I do most of it when I'm on it. I haven't been on it a lot since the new year, but like December, November, all those months I was. And I don't know if I took this from Gary Vee or from Vanessa Lau. Both of them are big on the marketing stuff, but they did. They set up a thing where I can do all of this for like an hour in the morning, and I'm done. And what it is I'll just read it real quick because I actually have it on my computer, not in a shareable mode. But it's one blog post is one LinkedIn article taken from the blog post, 15 tweets, quotes from your blog post, 14 text posts because they're into text, 2 Instagram posts from app screenshots, Notes app screenshots, because that was big for a while, the Notes app thing. 1 commentary. I don't know where you do commentaries, but that's on their list. 15 Instagram stories sharing your IG posts and tweets that you took from the blog post. You're putting them in your stories now. And then 15 Facebook stories that are automatically cross-posted from Instagram. So you write one blog post and you can churn out 64, according to the 64 pieces of content from one blog post. If you write a book, you could do the same thing. Quotes from your characters, quotes from this. You did writing for the day, a Notes app of screenshot. I mean, how much of your story are you really telling in one screenshot? So you're not giving away a ton, but those things are content and they're showing people if writing is the way you want to do this. If you don't want to post pictures of yourself and stuff like that. And I like that because in the morning I write a blog post. Again, it takes me like 20 minutes now, and then I can just start putting these little things together, and in an hour I'm done. I don't have to do social media all day. But then if I do more, it's cake. It's icing.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Scott says it's all about the time management. Good point, Kalene.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Don't give your life to it.
Yeah. Know how much time and don't give more than you really need. But being smart about it, so you have this blog post, it's not done. It has more work with which it can do. Just like, in writing the book, You can have it on an ebook platform. You can have it in print. You can do it in large print. You can now have it on audio. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with just the one book. There's more that you can do with the content, the other content that potentially you can create. So looking for multiple ways to use the same thing. Sorry, that was
Is that a bird?
bird in my room. Yeah.
Oh,
He's
Yeah,
huge.
he totally just made me lose my train of thought. That was really loud.
More to do from one thing.
Yes. So yeah, multiple streams of income is the same concept of multiple streams of content.
Yeah. And if you want to reach, so this is one of the reasons I do the nonfiction stuff that I have on Kindle. The short story one, that is unique. You won't find that anywhere. But the one about finding permission to be successful or something like that, I don't remember the title. I'm a bad author. But the Medium articles, I had Medium articles over a course of a few months that I was like, all of these are relevant together. I smashed them together and put them on Kindle. And that might seem shady, but it's on Kindle Unlimited. I only charge for it if you're not on Kindle Unlimited and not on Medium, which that means you never paid me. So now you're going to pay me. But that way, but you can read it for free in either direction, in either way. But in the Kindle, it took me no time to write it because I'm using elements from my my Medium. That is a super cool bird.
This is Sapphire. She hasn't been able to be on the show in a while because she ate my screen. And my daughter decided to bring her in. So
Ryan,
now she's going to eat my hair.
Do you see much crossover in your audience from Medium and your books?
So I deliberately don't want to.
Ooh.
And this is why I can't write a newsletter anymore. I have to do like the Intrepid Journal where I just lead people to be like, hey, if you're interested in what I'm inspired by, go there. But the reason is COVID showed me very personally the need for multiple revenue streams because people lost their jobs and they had nothing else.
Right.
I know I shared with Lauren before we went live, but I live in Las Vegas and I used to work for, I was a bouncer for nightclubs and I was a bodyguard for a long time. So all of the people from Hollywood, they come here to party. So I've met a lot of actors and a lot of like musicians and stuff. And I just, my dad's a doctor, so I know a lot of people locally who are millionaires. And what's crazy is most of them don't make money from one place like we think. Like Donald Trump's a millionaire because real estate or whatever. Maybe. Okay, there's people like that. But there's a lot of people, most millionaires have 5 to 6 revenue streams. They'll have their real estate investments, their stock investments. They'll have the business they own. They'll maybe have 2 or 3 businesses that they own and other things. Like they all have like multiple things they're into. Like Jessica Alba does movies and TV, but she also has a face product line for beauty products and stuff. Most of them have multiple revenue streams. And in order for you to have a different revenue stream that's resilient in a time like COVID, they can't be related. So if I did say, like let's say I wrote fiction for Kindle, and then I had all my medium was how to write fiction. And Kindle just, their algorithms went south. They stopped doing it. They changed their platform, and you can't make money as a writer on Kindle anymore. Well, so my books on Kindle now tanked, and no one cares to write anymore because they need to pivot and do something else. So no one's going to read my articles on Medium, and I lost what people thought was 2 revenue streams at once. They both went dead. So in order to have a revenue stream, you need to have 2 things. You need to have a unique audience. So on Kindle, I'm going for people who are into fiction, into writing, into that stuff. And on Medium, I'm going for people who want productivity, finance, business, inspiration, motivation, things like that. I think it's productivity. But I'm going for different things. DTRPGs, where I sell my RPGs, right? So is there some carryover? Yeah, most RPG audiences are interested in fiction, but they are separate. So if RPGs tank, I can still sell fiction. The other thing they need an independent platform. So if Amazon, unlikely because they dominated after COVID, but if Amazon tanked, I still have Medium. If Medium goes down, I still have DTRPG. If I lose my job, I still have, right? I want separate platforms which means I'm getting paid from different places for my work being on different places. So if someone has a YouTube channel and they've got 3 channels, and one is about like just goofy stuff, one is about business, and one's about something else, they're still on YouTube, even though they have different audiences. If YouTube goes south,
Everything's
they're
tagged
screwed.
there.
Yeah. So you need both those things. So I intentionally try not to cross-pollinate. And when I do, it's through my Intrepid journal and how I'm building that. Because it's like, look, this inspires me. If you want to be inspired too, come check this out. And then from there, I will share, hey, here's a really cool article I wrote on Medium, or here's a book I just put out. But I won't inundate it because that's not my goal for Intrepid Journal is value. Here's a bunch of things I can offer you, or I hope that helps you.
Yeah, well, if you are in Vegas and you're doing the Intrepid Journal, then you'll actually meet a lot of these musicians and creators in person, because they're going to end up going through Vegas at some point, and you could bring in that meeting into your journal, your blog article that you wrote, or podcast, or whatever you're going to do.
So I'm writing it's a newsletter, and I'm having like Destiny write some stuff on mostly social media and music. I write mostly like TV and video games or books, and then I want to get more people involved. I want lots of people. I don't want this to be about me. And then when I start my YouTube channel for the Intrepid Journal, I want to do interviews with people who are doing really cool things. I already told Walt I want him on my first one, and he's like, yeah. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I do. I want to help people who are maybe struggling to create more. I think that's the best way that my personal brand of kind of going everywhere and having multiple revenue streams, I think that's the way that I can solidify it all. Is I'm inspired by a lot of things, and here's a bunch of stuff that also inspired. And then people can learn about my different revenue streams from there.
All right. Well, real quick, you've been so generous with your time, and
thank
you very much. But we have a couple of last-minute questions. We'll try to hit them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boiler 2015 says, any advice for getting covers designed for high-volume short-read releases?
So that was a problem that I had with Walt when I talked about this business model in December on the Banff podcast. And we decided, we never came up with an answer. I did, and I'm going forward with it this week. Canva.com is a great place. It's kind of like Photoshop Lite for people like me who just can't work with Photoshop. I just can't wrap my head around it. And I did take graphic design classes too. I just can't do it. Yeah, I can't do it. But Canva, I can do. And instead of paying $500 for cover art, I don't know what people pay, but that's what I paid for one of my covers. It's $12 a month, and I can also do really cool blog pictures and stuff for headlines for that on there. And most blog covers want people like a picture of a person. They do have those if you want to play with that. But what I'm doing is I'm using Canva. I'm doing something basic and then with a basic logo or something that I'm kind of making myself through just different shapes on there. It takes a couple hours and time. I mean, it's a skill. You gotta get good at it. All this stuff is skills. If you're not going to work at your business, then get out of business. I mean, when you're learning new things from new revenue streams, you have to learn it. But what I'm doing to save cost on it, because I don't want to pay $500 a week and never see that money back, is I'm doing this. And then when I have a story, I feel like this is a complete thing, or a season or something, or a whole story arc is done, then what I'll do is I'll get one photo for like the what do they call them? I don't know. But the big collection. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. An omnibus. I'll do a really cool one for that. But before the little ones, I'll get them all. And what I'll do is I'll have my name, the title, and if one element of the picture be one color. And then every episode or issue I'll change the color of those. So that way it feels like it's a new thing. And even if I did pay someone for art, I only had to do it one time for maybe 10 projects. And I can just go in and change the color myself. Or ask them, hey, I need 10 of these, and make that part of the buy. But I'm doing it that way. And then if I end up finding that it works a better way, I'll let you know. But that is the only cost-effective way that I've found to do high volume, because you can't do it without a cover. So you do have to have a cover, and it has to be interesting.
And then last question, asks Ryan, does your short story book have the tricks to writing serial fiction? I think that would be a good thing for the blog /newsletter.
Yeah, gosh, I wrote that months and months ago. So it has, I'm just gonna reveal a bit about it. So I have the Neil Gaiman rule. That's the one step is write it like it's the last chapter of a book you never read, and then the other one is James Scott Bell talking about how short stories are all about the shattering moment, the worst moment that could possibly happen to this person or this story or this element, which is why Daredevil about to get his butt beat by Kingpin. That's the moment. Whatever way it's going to pivot and go one direction or the other. I don't go into serials in that, but the only thing you need for a serial is there was a goal, and so you know what, The Mandalorian is a perfect example. Everyone just wants to see Baby Yoda. That's the only reason I'm tune in. But this episode, he might need to save Baby Yoda, or they might need to escape a cave or do something. That's the goal. But he also has this overarching goal of get Baby Yoda to the Jedi or find him a Mandalorian. It's like we always know his big goal. Don't resolve that. Have a more immediate goal and make that the thing that someone wants. When you say who wants what from whom, it's the immediate goal. And then the overall story goal is just something that this person wants that one day maybe we'll see resolved. And that creates this element of serial fiction that in TV they call it A, B, and C stories. The C story is the one that trails on for the whole season that you never see resolved until the last few episodes. But that's where it's like, it's not who wants what from whom. It's just what does this person want, but we don't know from whom does he want it yet. Like Mandalorian wants to deliver Yoda to the Jedi. To who? We don't know. We find out, but we don't know initially. And so that answer is not done yet. But we need to get these eggs to this place or whatever. That's the immediate who wants what from whom.
Cool.
Hopefully that answers.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna wrap up the show. I think
I have to use my other hand and my mouse is over here. So.
She's got the bird, guys. She's got the beautiful bird.
Dangling with a sapphire. So it's given me a lot of ideas. Diversifying your income, not being tied to one single platform, looking out there at all the other different platforms that at our disposal. You don't have to go on all of them, but if you know, you're already doing research on who your audience is, in writing this book. So where does that audience hang out in the social medias, on all these different platforms, and how can you reach them? That's a question we can't answer for you because it all comes down to what are you comfortable with giving? What are you comfortable with sharing? And, what are you comfortable with creating? And if it's, just writing and cranking out books, man, write those books and crank them out and, do the thing. Do your thing the way you want it to be. Ow, really? To be done. Sorry, bird bit me. So thank you for coming on and sharing all of your wonderful tips, tricks, and, kind of bridging this diversifying concept we've kind of been on the last couple weeks. Can you remind our viewers and listeners where they can find you and your work?
So I'm at Ryan M. Danks at all the social medias. If you can't find it, then I'm not there. But Twitter, Instagram, Medium, all those things, I'm at Ryan M. Danks. I have a website, ryanmdanks.com. I don't keep it up very much. I'm not good at it. But and then on Amazon, Ryan M. Danks.
Alrighty. Well, you heard it here. And make sure you check us out next week. We're going to have more topics and things. We did put out in the Keystroke group on Facebook a survey because we here at Keystroke, we're trying to, solidify all this stuff that we're doing. We've got a lot of content that we're putting out. We have live, the writer's journey, coffee and concepts. I'm now doing Kalene story time. We have James S. Aaron, on doing his thing. There's also Gayu. He does his long form thingamajiggers, and it's it's all out there. So we go fill that out. You don't have to, give us your email or anything for it, unless you want, in on the drawing for a free copy of James's workbook thingy. You don't have to fill it out, but we want to hear back from you. And because we're gonna make it all make sense and bring you more content with the things that you want. Yes.
And buy coffee.
Yeah.
And coffee. And go buy our coffee.
Walt has a coffee line. I was like, what?
Yes.
Another thing he doesn't share.
Yeah, our whole purpose, guys, for doing this at all, for talking, is, we're trying to learn something from Ryan, but we're trying to do this to learn with you guys. So what do you want to learn? Who do you want to hear from? What do you want to know? Who can we ask? Who can we bring on the show for you guys? Let us know. We would love to do that.
And if we're doing something you don't like, you can tell us. There's an option. There's a part in there that's like, what don't you like? And you can tell us. And we don't know who said what, because the way that the answers come through. So, just let us know. Like, there's already been, 10 or 15 surveys done, and I know each of us are getting ideas. So anyway, long form of saying, this is Keystroke Medium's overall 6th year, the writer's journey's 3rd year, and we're not going anywhere because we do this for you. We love coming and hanging out with you and learning together. And I would not be the writer I am today without Keystroke. So anything we can do to make it better and reach more people, to make the journey a little easier. Oh, I'm sorry.
I love that message.
Yeah, then, that's what we're going to do, because that's what Keystroke Medium's about. We stroke them keys because that's our medium. All right, artistic medium, rather. All righty, everybody out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, ding the bell, so you can be notified of when more Keystroke shows are coming on. And as always, we'll be back next week with more reading, writing, and everything in between right here on